Welcome to Scale Without Chaos, the podcast on business growth, visionary leadership, and scalable systems. Each week, you'll hear real stories, the messy parts, and the proven strategies that help leaders grow without burning out their team or themselves. And yes, you'll definitely hear a few spicy takes along the way. Here are some highlights from this week's episode.
What people pay attention to is what the leader of the organization pays attention to. That's just how it works.
Exactly.
And so if that leader is not the one that is fully invested in developing people, doesn't develop themselves, doesn't develop their direct reports, and then doesn't just have that sort of mindset, you're leaving money on the table.
What if we develop them and then they leave? And I love the canned answer to this is what if we don't and then they stay, right? That's the canned answer. But there are still people who are asking the question. And now, this week's episode. Welcome back to Scale Without Chaos. I'm your host, Samantha Reel, and today I'm joined by Jamey Gadoury. He is the owner and founder of Outsider Consulting, and I am so thrilled to have Jamey on the podcast with me today. As many of you know, through listening to Scale Without Chaos and what we're about with the Scale Without Chaos framework, we are all about the fact that all of your business problems fit into one of three buckets: people, processes, or systems. And Jamey is one of my favorite people to talk about the people aspect with, especially with all of the work that he's been doing in leadership development and now his new podcast, which is Outsider Unscripted. So before I keep going on and on about you, Jamey, would you mind introducing yourself and your background so that the listeners kind of get a full understanding of really what you're about? It's so interesting.
Sure, I really appreciate it. Very, very kind, Samantha, and excited to be here chatting with you. Have loved seeing the progression of everything you're working on right now. So real treat to be here. I guess, going back, the Charles Dickens way all the way to the beginning, was born in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and grew up just outside the city. And spent a year down in South Carolina at Bible College, and then went to West Point in New York. So that launched what would be essentially a 13-year career accounting college in the Army. Commissioned in 1999 as an infantry officer, and went through that. That's got a pretty specific pipeline of airborne school, ranger school, things like that. And after completing that, went up to the historic 101st Airborne at Fort Campbell, which was really, really neat opportunity. But quickly went into 9/11, everything that came with that, with the long war, and then the war in Iraq after that. Deployed both to Afghanistan and Iraq through that. In between those, served as a ranger instructor down at the final phase of Ranger School in Florida, and finished up time in Iraq, 2 years in company command, a 15-month deployment there during 06-07, which was the terms we use, kinetic. A lot going on with some of the insurgent and Al-Qaeda activity. Came back from that, right. And I was frankly depleted, exhausted, all of the above, and
Yeah, who would blame you?
Yeah, and I had a leader who told me kind of when you've done your part, it's fine to proceed and go to something else, which I did, and that was absolutely a blessing in hindsight. But I didn't have a great plan. I had a plan, and then that fell through, and then I didn't really have a next one. And so I'm sitting there in summer of 2008 contemplating what's next, and stumbled across this category of management consulting and all of that kind of thing. I'm like, well, this is interesting. And end up chatting with a friend of mine who had served with, and he linked me up with some folks. It's always that, right? It's the network.
Yes, always.
I know a guy,
Yeah.
right? And that was very specifically how it occurred for me. So I got linked up with a great team down in Texas, Central Texas, previous group, Nate Self, some other guys founding that. Got to work for he and Chris Miller, Scott Todd for a few years. And in that time learned really this craft, like of what I do in terms of leader development, use of stories, use of assessments, working one-on-one with leaders, but also working with leader teams of how do we actually I mean, you can put it in these terms of like optimize, to your point, the people part of the business.
Right.
And really, I'd always been interested in psychology since I could spell it, actually before I could spell it. And
Yeah.
it was a great match. So from there, shorts, making the long story shorter, ended up going to grad school, and then ultimately 2015. So I guess hit 10 years of Outsider on my own, which has been great. Some great partnerships along the way, and it's an exciting space to be in. But I work with leaders who are committed to getting better and leading their people well, and forming
Mhm.
really good leader teams and teams in general. So that's me. I'm married to the former Amy Beer, which for a hot minute I considered changing my last name to hers because that'd just be fun. And we've got 3. Really got to call them young adults now, ranging from 15 to early 20s. So that's
Oh, wow.
yeah.
All of that keeps you very busy.
Yeah. But it's good. That's good
Yeah.
stuff. It's a lot
Yeah.
of fun.
For sure. And having been one of the executives that you coached, I had the opportunity to work with you directly. I think it will come out very organically and authentically why I really wanted you here to help me unpack some of these most common business challenges that we have. And so I'm going to start with, honestly, it's my favorite one because this is kind of the biggest one. Everyone overlooks it. It's the most opportunity for success, in my opinion, and it gets botched all the time. So let's jump right into it, Jamey. Why do leaders get promoted and step into roles that they are not necessarily ready for? Why does that happen in the business environment?
Yeah, I love this question, and at least my view of it have had a lot of time kind of chatting with other folks about.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to at least 2 things. I'm probably leaving something out, but to me it's 2 things, and one is the organization, the institution, if you will, but organizations tend to just not invest in that leader development.
100%.
Right? We
Yeah.
just haven't done it. Don't think of it that way. And maybe
Right.
it's easier for me to see that so clearly because of my Army background, where I just saw a
Mm.
meme on this a couple days ago on LinkedIn talking about how athletes spend so much time training and only a little bit of time like actually competing, versus in the business world it's completely upside down, with we're often not pulling time back to
A great analogy.
right? To train, to develop.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw it, I immediately thought of my Army experience, because the Army is all about training. Most of your time is spent training,
Mhm.
except when we're actively, obviously, in war. But even then, there are rotations where a unit will go and deploy, then comes back, gets better, reforms, all of that, rests, recovers.
Right.
And so that training and development mentality was just baked into me from, the age of 19. And so
Right.
to see it's very different. It depends on where you're at, probably depends a little bit on industry, and definitely depends on each organization. But I think ultimately organizations don't prioritize developing the next generation of leaders at whatever level. It's not prioritized. It's seen as, I would say, leader development in general. Even places that do it well, there is often a crosswind or counterwind of it's a luxury, and we'll do it when we have
Right.
the budget. Actually heard a leader use those exact terms not long ago,
Yeah.
and I believe
Yes.
used the term luxury. And I get it.
Mm.
I absolutely get it. The irony is, I was talking to somebody about this week, that even though I'm in this space and do this, there are things that are gaps for me because I'm so focused on execution, on making the business run, on getting things
Yeah.
done, like all of the above. So it's not not so much like a blame, like, oh my gosh, we're all dirt bags, but it's like the environment, the pressures are not pushing us towards investing that time or money in it, frankly.
Right.
That
Right.
that's the
Exactly.
that's the first reason.
And the second?
The second, I think, is this myth, and again, it's the most natural thing in the world, but we look at somebody and, for instance, say that this person is an amazing salesperson. They're just crushing it. And therefore,
my favorite example.
right?
Yes. And I didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep going. My favorite
No,
example.
but you get it, right? They're going to be the best sales leader ever because of that,
right.
automatically.
You want to clone them.
Right?
Yeah. You want to clone them.
And yeah, and the gap is that we assume that they will do the cloning with no other intervention, right? And it's the same thing.
Right.
Done a lot of work in the medical community, same thing with doctors. It's just like, pick your industry. The same thing. We think that if you look at me and say, Jamey's really good at that skill set, therefore he must be a good leader in it or a good manager in it. And that's just not the case. It is a different domain, leadership and management. And you could even pull those apart to an extent, but those are different domains than the thing that we do in the execution. And I think that kind of whatever we want to call it, right? Logical fallacy or gap. I think that's the other reason. So people are thrown into it and expected to just somewhat magically perform.
To just go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just go.
Yeah.
I was talking about this the other day, sometimes without so much as even a advancement plan.
Yes.
I feel like having an advancement plan is actually step one. It's like the starting block. And a lot of folks are not even getting off the starting block with bringing someone up from within the organization. We won't even get into bringing someone in who's new.
Yeah, right.
And all of the work that needs to happen there. But just talking about what happens when you take someone from that sales role and put them into a sales leader role, and all of the things that go along with what they need to change about their day-to-day and how they need to interact with peers that maybe they have interacted with for years, or maybe some people who they might have reported to before. There's so many nuances to that change that are simply not ignored. So to go back to your first point, everybody is focusing on the most burning issue, right? I don't want to call it firefighting because that's not fair, but it is the most burning issue at the time. So what's needed now? What are we doing for deadlines today? And I understand the word luxury and budget when it comes to training, because those are always, if you're talking about a pyramid of needs, hierarchy of needs, you got to get to the most basic things first, right? And so up here is where training would be. If you want to get better at something, that's nice. That's nice, but you got to be able to survive first. So I do completely understand that mindset, but I think next level leaders, what we really need to get to is to understand the ROI and the benefit and how much easier you make your life for not just yourself, for everyone, when you start to invest in those kinds of programs and when you start to develop your leaders. It's something that I can't wait until it catches hold in mainstream, but we're not there yet. We're so far away from that. I guess that's why we both exist, Jamey.
Well, no,
so I guess
it's like the semi-cynical is, well, that's job security.
Exactly. That's why we exist.
Yeah.
So it works. Yeah. Okay. So anything else on that one before we completely switch topics? Because I threw all kinds of different ones today.
No, I think the only other thing to say, it gets after that, to your point, the hierarchy of needs and budgeting, is that many of us can kind of go into this all or nothing framework for it. And even cutting out small amounts of time, small amounts of investment is going to pay big dividends. And that's I think we'll talk some of this later as well, but just kind of that idea of creating some space and allocating something to it, right? We don't have to do everything all at once, but I think having that mindset that this is important for the future of the business. This is important for the not too distant future, right? Because the gains can come pretty quickly. It's just because it's fuzzier than some of the other metrics that we have. It's easy to deprioritize it. So I think really it comes to, like, if you can just prioritize it, and then you can back into how much time and money you allocate, but do something.
Do something. I know already there's some HR leaders who I know will be listening to this podcast who are going to be cheering you on, like, yes, Jamey, keep talking. Say more. For sure.
Love it.
All right. So shifting gears a little bit. So we talked about someone who is promoted, so new leaders. Along with that, of course, comes delegation and fear of delegation and releasing control. And how do you coach people through that? I think it's extremely common. So how you must see it all the time. How do you coach people through that?
Yeah, some of this depends on personality, which I tie into that a lot, and some of us are more perfectionistic than others, so that plays in. But I do think that if you look at the autonomy that I have for my and responsibility for my own success as, say, an individual contributor, moving into a leadership position, the challenge is that I still have the responsibility and the ultimate accountability, but I don't have the same type of control. I don't. And that's
Hmm.
disconcerting. And I think
Hmm.
that's at the root of why many of us won't delegate something, is because I'm not sure. I'll put it this way. I'm scared that it's not going to get done the right way.
Yes. Right. There are I've so many things to unpack there. So many things, right? So it's around setting expectations, all of the
Yeah.
things that are part of that inherently. But it took so long for me to actually believe the words, that I could let go. That I could let go and let my team do that. And I think when you said some of us are perfectionists, raising hand right here, that I associated so much of my worth, my value to the quality of work that I put into everything. It had to be good, had to be the best. And that's part of the reason why I got promoted through the different ranks. And so it took that manager role, that first time manager role, that was rough. Not I actually spent a lot of time with my business coach and a lot of time with my HR leader to say, I don't know how to do this. I actually don't know how to let this go. What would you say to those types of people who are sitting there going, I don't even know how to get to square one?
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that was your experience, and that you're sharing it, because I think that is probably like the first step to know that you're not alone, right? It's very
Mm,
normal, and I think
okay.
that's part of the
Yeah.
added pressure we put on ourselves. Is like, well, then clearly I must just be screwing it all up if I'm not figuring this out, right? But it is
Right.
what you just described is such a common, if not the default, right, of this challenge. Because how do I do this? I'm not even sure
Okay.
how to prioritize. I'm so used to providing such a top level of delivery repeatedly. I don't know what this looks like. So I think first is like, you're not alone, and there is something about the camaraderie of the suffering, if you will, that gives hope, right? Like, others before you have figured this out, others with you right now have figured this out. It's hard, and you'll get there, um, hopefully, right? And I think there's
Right.
a little bit of being
That's true.
grounded in reality, where my friend Michael Ross over at Trintech often says, is like, not everybody jumps that gap, um,
That's true.
and at least not the first time, right? Like, I may have to
Mm.
fall on my face and not get it right. And you mentioned Outsider Unscripted. Michael was actually our episode number 2, and he talks about his experience of
Mhm.
failing it the first time, because he didn't understand how that works. And he said, I thought if I just did my best and did everything that, and the 40 other people that were reporting to me did that too, everything would work out. And he's like, that's not actually how it works. Because there's so much in it of the impact, the influence. How do we set people up for success? How do we guide them? How do we think at this different level? So again, I think it's you're not alone. Others have figured it out. It is, especially for the perfectionists in the room, an embracing of sometimes 80% is okay,
Yes.
right?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And I put
Yeah.
that kind of in this bucket of, like, again, grounding ourselves in reality, is that each of us are finite human beings. We all get the same number of hours in the day, the same rotational rhythms around the sun. And we have limits to our energy. And I think a lot of times when we're in the hustle, trying to kind of, prove ourselves, demonstrate, we're so almost not even paying attention to the cap on our energy, because I could just always do more. I can sleep less.
Yeah,
I can just pour ourselves in.
absolutely.
Even then, we still have a limit. And so I think for the new manager, new leader, it's acknowledging, like, I have a limit to my energy. And so it becomes, where is my energy best spent? And I put time in that bucket. Time and energy it's not the same, but energy management is just as important, if not more important. And so with that, there are things that if you truly rank ordered them, you can say, you know what, that's not that big a deal if that, falls to the floor. I love the analogy of like rubber balls and glass balls and whatever other kinds you might want to throw in there. It's like some balls bounce, some break.
Yeah.
So
I love that analogy. I have a really good way of training this now, right? I didn't do so great at training it in myself, but I have a really great way of training this now. And it's essentially just to say, hands off keys, hands off keys. You are not allowed to touch it.
yeah.
You are not allowed to touch it. You can guide, you can show, you can tell, all of those things, but it doesn't matter if it takes this person 5 revisions to get to the level that you are working towards. If it gets to 5 revisions, then you might want to talk about how you give feedback. But if it takes that amount of time, that's the process that you need to go to, because next time it's going to take 3. And the time after that, it's going to take 1. And even though it's going to take a longer amount of time for you to teach them now, you are absolutely not doing yourself any favors in the long term, short term, doesn't matter, no favors, to be able to put your hands on those keys and actually do the work yourself. That's not helping you. And that has worked. That actually does work. When I say, no, you're not allowed to touch it, you have to tell them how to do it. It's like, oh, okay, somebody's going to force me to do this. All right, I got this. So it does help.
And one, good for you. And 2, that goes right back to an organization deciding to invest in that development, because that's one of those easily accessible, doesn't cost a lot besides the time of the people involved, that if you make that decision to, I'm going to allow, if we want to call them failures, right, contained failures and iterations, that's how that person's developing. I can't develop if you always do it for me, right? And then I feel like we know this in child development. And you're talking about, Maslow and hierarchy of needs, and we can think about stages of human development as well. Like, we understand that if you do everything for a child, the child will not develop. Like, pick your skill set, right? I mean, if I were to carry, Famie and I carried our kids all the time and never allowed them to crawl and walk, guess what? They'd be like, in their 20s not being able to walk, which is crazy. That's ludicrous. No one does that. But that's the equivalent of what we do as managers and leaders who are unwilling to let someone struggle, which is hard. And it's hard for some people to watch someone else struggle or have to do it over. But truly, the development comes, the confidence, to your point, grows. They get it after, 3 times the next time and reducing it. Or what also happens is they figure out a better way to do it than we had thought, which is even like excellent,
Right. And that's the best scenario. I'm sure you've had this happen to you too. When you ask somebody to do something and it comes back better than you could have done yourself, that's a yes. This is awesome. This is
my
perfect.
brain would
Thank
not
you.
have gone there, and yours did, and this is amazing. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that is the best. I love those moments every time those happen. So shifting gears a little bit. And I know I'm throwing all of the most random questions at you right now, Jamey. So thank you for being a good
not at
sport
all.
and playing along with these.
Not at all.
But these are the biggest things. These are what everyone is asking about. The outdated ideas in leadership. 2025 has been a whirlwind for everybody, right? I hate to mention the pandemic, but I'm going to mention it. I feel like it's so overdone, but we're going to mention it anyway. The fact that just changed leadership for the rest of our lives anyway. And then there's folks coming up who now only know this version of leadership. And then 2025, we've got a whole new thing. AI has made a difference in terms of leadership and what we can do. What are some of the outdated leadership ideas that you are still seeing people kind of clinging on to that maybe aren't good for the benefit of the team? There are probably some that are, but what are some that are not fantastic?
So I'll give you my opinion on the first one, and you mentioned HR folks earlier, so you might have a better read. But I think this one still lingers: is that the development of people is the job of HR. Period. Full stop.
Yes. Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
that's so. I'll just call it obscene from my world.
Fair enough.
Like that's just like ludicrous. That is not. I think about my military experience, and yes, the institution has all sorts of programmed interventions, which often are acknowledged as somewhere between good enough and like, why did I have to go do that? The true development and opportunities, just like it is on a job site after college, let's say, is through the investment that the people are making, that leaders are making in their people, so that you have some humans are making an investment in other humans, and by that I mean if somebody is in the organization, whoever's leading that organization is truly the one that's responsible to do that, and punting it to the HR team and letting them figure it all out. I mean, and this is where I think that there might be some real resonance with your listeners, is like, you're abdicating, the terms of like, who's the executive sponsor, right? Well,
Exactly.
sometimes
Yes,
that's
that's
in
it.
name alone, right? Great. There's a quote executive sponsor, but really where we should be at is that an executive is truly taking ownership of it. And if they've got a solid HR team, partnership, right? Let's like do this together. But you're kind of, it's like, I say it's obscene. It's like you're asking somebody to do something that isn't theirs to own. They can, again, impact it, execute, partner, all of that. But like, what people pay attention to is what the leader of the organization pays attention to. That's just how it works.
Exactly.
And so if that leader is not the one that is fully invested in developing people, doesn't develop themselves, doesn't develop their direct reports, and then doesn't just have that sort of mindset, you're leaving money on the table. I mean, if we want to talk in those terms, right? Because your people aren't truly going to develop to the extent that they could. So let's go into the stewardship and the responsibility you have as an executive in a company to use your resources well. And if you're not involved in people development, particularly leader development, then you are not stewarding the resources of your company or your organization properly.
I agree. The other thing I thought of while you were talking is, so you ask HR to own this thing, right? So you ask them to own this thing and then promptly cut their budget for it. Promptly.
Right. Yeah. Figure it out.
Every single time. The training budget is the first thing off the top during budget season. Or there has to be some type of a extreme justification.
Yeah.
And I will call it extreme. It is an extreme justification. I've seen HR leaders need to jump through hoops to be able to showcase a meager, I will say meager, training budget. And it might be a training budget that's only for the executive level. It doesn't even touch the frontline manager level. And so there's so many nuances there. And it's also so much more specialized. So to your point about it can't just be HR's job. I mean, my background being in marketing, there are 15 different specializations that happen, more than that, but 15 different specializations on a team in marketing. How on earth would HR know every single detail? That's just about their job.
Right.
And that's just about their day to day. That doesn't even include things like leadership training and things that actually go across all different disciplines. That's just those particular items. So it's really not fair even further your point even more. It is really not fair to ask HR to own everything when it comes to training and leadership development in 2025. It's just not fair.
It's not, absolutely. So it's outdated.
Yeah. The other one, I have two actually. Though the one that I was thinking of in response to this question directly related to leadership development is the idea of, well, what if we develop them and then they leave? What do we do then? And it is, I understand,
Yeah.
I get it. It is a question. It's a question. We'll put it that way. What if we develop them and then they leave? And I love the canned answer to this is what if we don't and then they stay? Right? That's the canned answer. But there are still people who are asking the question, well, what if we're investing in these people and in 2 years they go down to our competitor or they go to this other company? It's like, well, what if they do?
Yeah. Yes.
What happened? I mean, you can't control that, but how impactful is their time if they stay?
Yeah. I mean, I get it, I guess, from if just on paper, right? I think maybe I get that on paper. Like if we're
Yeah,
scrawling it
on
on a
paper.
napkin, I can understand that. But I just think it's
Fair.
not. It maybe this is strong, but it's not grounded in reality. Reality is
Mhm.
you don't really control if they're going to leave anyway. So there's this like logical flaw. We skip something, right? Like, well, what if I
Yeah.
invested them and they leave? Well, they might leave anyway.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
like you didn't have the control you thought you had. And if you're all about control, I'll say the danger is like what like you're leading other human beings to get rid of your illusions of control, right? If we're not partnering with people, then
Mm.
then we're already like setting ourselves back, right? This isn't machines. Like if I'll say it this way. If there's a leader listening to this, which I doubt because they wouldn't be listening to this, but if there's a leader listening to this that truly desires the human beings that work for them to just be robots, I would say just wait about 12 months, right? We're gonna get there with AI and all that's going on with that. That's fine. And explore
Yeah.
those industries where that's gonna be your dream job to lead robots. Like honestly,
Yeah, right.
if you choose to remain in the domain of people to any degree, then we got to live in reality. And people have motivations that are different. They have life circumstances that are different, like all of the above. And if we truly want to get the best engagement at work, which Gallup and everybody else tells me is what people want, we want people that are
Yeah.
interested in their jobs. We want people that put in discretionary effort. Allegedly, we want these things. Well, then if we want
Allegedly.
allegedly, right? Because if we truly
Like,
want them, then we need to act like it, and acting like it says these are human beings that I'm responsible for, and I'm going to treat them as such. And that means that I'm invested in their success. If that success at some point means that they leave my organization, go in peace, right? And
mhm.
and maybe sometime in the future we'll get to work together again, and wouldn't that be cool?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And
Exactly.
by the way, everybody around sees that I'm willing to invest in people regardless of outcome. And that's a morale bump. We did a program where at the beginning of it, it was a year long, this particular one. At the beginning of it, one of the leaders said at the beginning, just the fact that we're doing this is already a win. The fact that the company has chosen to invest in me because they'd had a little bit of I assumed, the opposite for a bit. But you're going to impact morale. I think it's a good on paper question. I could spend a lot more time than we have today talking about how it's not grounded in reality.
Correct. Yes. And I mean, there are so many things that I could continue to piggyback off of. Don't even get me started on work from home policies or back to the office policies. Return to office policies.
That's a tough one. I'll say we might have to debate on that one. I go back and forth, to be honest. It depends on industry too.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
All of that is absolutely fair. I think we'll do another podcast on that at some point, because I think that would be a really interesting conversation
It's
between the
rich.
two of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's great. Okay, so we've covered a lot, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to highlight 2 to 3 changes that organizations could do in the relative relative short term, who can create strong or to create stronger leaders, to enable them to really guide their teams, meet their business goals, all of those things. What are 2 to 3 things that you could do quickly that would allow them to see immediate ROI in their teams?
I'll say the first. I do want to hit 3. I'll say the first 2 fairly quickly. One
Sure.
is just to create space. Even
Mhm.
shoot, even a half hour of a leader with lead, of a senior leader with junior leaders to talk about this thing, just cutting that time out from the busyness. I think of it as most of our time is spent at the execution end of the spectrum. We want to get to the creativity and ability to breathe end of the spectrum
Mm.
for a hot minute, right? Even just creating
Right.
that space and doing something with it. You can Google it, you can AI bot it, you can do whatever your method is. But if you just simply make the choice to create some space and then plan it even just a little bit, good things will happen. Second,
Yes.
I think create opt-in opportunities. So, and this is one of the
Mhm.
challenges just with trying to make everything, um, programmed for development, is that we can spend a lot of time putting together a plan, and then we're going to have like a bell curve or some other sort of curve of engagement with it. I think your
Right.
first step is best for opt-in. The people that want to develop, the people that are already of a mindset to partner with the organization to get better, these would probably be high performers or high potentials, right? But create an opt-in
Yeah.
opportunity where if I'm interested, I can do something, whatever it is. It could be in the realm of self-awareness, one-on-one coaching. It could be something you're partnering with HR and whatever, but create opt-in opportunities so you can get some early successes and start to figure some things out.
Yes.
Those are easy wins, in my opinion. Um, I this has been something I'm thinking on and actually fairly recently, but it's pinning the tail on who's in charge of which leaders. I don't mean from a reporting structure. I don't mean from like getting the work
Okay.
done, but when it comes to the development of individual leaders, who owns it? And I saw this at one point with a client where awesome, awesome doers and leaders and all about development and investing. And there was a gap where everyone was focused on everyone's development from like
What?
from kind of the top down. It was,
Really?
yeah. And it was like, I mean, that's not a bad thing. Like, hey, I'm in it and like I'm at the
No.
top and like, hey, we're
Yeah.
going to help. But it then diffuses the responsibility, right? The effort. So it's not like
Right.
focused. And so we kind of talked through like how can we do this? And I offered up what this is an Army probably doctrine or an Army practice that isn't widely executed and probably not widely executed well. But the idea is that a leader is responsible for the development of the people 2 levels below. So you think of like,
Oh.
say, in depending on size of company, let's just say that somebody in the C-suite is responsible for the development, not of the VPs, but of the directors, right?
Interesting.
And a lot of goodness can happen in that. It doesn't to the name of your podcast, doesn't always scale in both directions, right? Like how much do
Right.
our board members choosing to engage at that level if we take it that way. But the idea is that then the maturity that's there, probably that person 2 levels up has the better idea of how to invest and how to develop this
Yeah.
person. They've got enough life experience. So I think where it could work well, you think of like a CEO that is deliberately working with vice presidents. So that's like
Yeah.
C-suite and then below. Um,
Okay.
it took off, it resonated, right? So I offer that as a way. The main point is somebody needs to own each of those groups and to truly own it from a development standpoint. And this is where I go into pulling apart productivity and performance from development. And that's one of the challenges we have is we're always keeping those together. We're thinking of development and performance as exactly the same thing. Here's the thing.
Right.
If you sit me down to have a performance review and you're going to talk my development at the same time, I'm going to have about this much candor with you, like 0, about what I'm really wrestling with and where my gaps are. because we're talking about my
Right.
performance. I want to show you what a good job I did. I want my bonus, want my raise, all that stuff. But if we can pull apart the conversations about development to where there's an ability to, let's be honest, like, hey, Jamey, where you at? Well, I'm really struggling with delegation. That's awesome. Let's grab some coffee and talk about it. And
I love it.
no judgment, right?
Yeah.
But pin the tail. Who in the organization was saying, you are responsible to develop these people, probably not your direct reports, might be 2 levels down, might be elsewhere in the organization, but decide how you're going to do it and hold people accountable. Say, you're responsible to develop them. You can think of it in mentorship terms, mentoring partners, like whatever the method is, but pin the tail.
Yeah.
So that I, as a leader, am obligated to be developing somebody in the team, and you're holding me accountable to that.
I love that. That's really interesting. I've never heard that before as an opportunity for leadership development within an organization, but it makes a lot of sense. It takes you out, you're right, it takes you out of the execution part. You're not necessarily talking about day to day, and you're talking more about the person and how you can develop them. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. All right. Well, Jamey, I think we've covered an entire masterclass worth of information in 40 minutes here. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Samantha, thanks for the invite. This was fun.
Yeah, I know. Oh, and we've got to come back. We need to do another one on work from home
Love it.
and return to office. Yeah, we're going to. I think we'll do one.
Excellent.
Great. Excellent. All right. Thanks, everyone. This has been Scale Without Chaos. We'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in to Scale Without Chaos. If today's episode sparked new ideas or gave you a fresh perspective, do me a favor. Hit that follow button, subscribe for new episodes, and share this with someone who's going through what we talked about today. This podcast is all about visionary leadership, sustainable business growth, and the systems that make scale possible. For more content, free resources, and behind-the-scenes insights, connect with me on LinkedIn, follow along on Instagram at Scale Without Chaos, and subscribe to the newsletter. Until next time, keep building.